Today what we're going to do is we're going to put down a mudsill first, and then we're going to frame the floor joists. Before we put down the mudsill, we have to go around and check these foundation bolts and make sure that they're sticking up straight. If they're sticking up straight, we're in good shape. If they're bent over, we have to tap them over. So what we'll use is like a 3-pound sludge. And the most important thing you got to do here is you got to put a nut on the foundation bolt first, because if you hit the threads with your hammer, you'll never get your nut to the threads. So what we'll do here is give you a little demonstration. This isn't a big wham type thing. This is just a tapping motion. Slowly bend over this. Now you don't want to do this when the concrete's fresh. You want to let the concrete cure for, say, I don't know, at least 7 days before you start hitting it, because if you hit it too hard, you may spall the concrete and knock the concrete off the outside of the foundation. This concrete's been here for a little while, so we're pretty safe. You don't want to hit the threads with the hammer, because if you do, you'll disrupt the threads and it'll be really tough to put that nut on. So what you want to do is you want to thread the nut on first, get it all the way down, make sure that it's up above the bolt, so you don't hit the top edge of the bolt when you hit with your hammer. But you can see that this one is tilted over this way a bit. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try to straighten it up, and you just eyeball this. You know, it's not critical that it's perfect. It just has to be roughly straight up and down. You just do small taps, and the leverage when you hit the top of the bolt will bring it over very easily. You don't want to hit down at the base. You want to hit right up at the top, and that'll pull it over. So that looks pretty straight. Now we're ready for the mudsill. Now we get to the exciting point here where we've poured our foundation, and now we're starting to work with wood. But we got to do the connection between the foundation and the wood portion of the project. That connection part is called a mudsill. What we have to do with the mudsill is we put the mudsill down on the foundation, and then we'll actually bolt it down using our anchor bolts here. And I'll work with that right now and show you how you do that, how you tie this mudsill down to the foundation. First thing we have to do is cut this mudsill to length. Now if we measure across this foundation, here and across at the other end, we have a 12-foot foundation. So we'll cut our mudsill to 12 foot. Making sure that we cut both sides to 12 foot. Then we'll have a square when we're finished. All right, now we're ready to lay out the bolts on the mudsill. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to line up the edges on this mudsill, and we want to get an even space from the edge of the mudsill to the edge of the foundation. So the very first thing you do, once you have it roughly where you want it, is measure across. Now you're going to bump into some of these bolts, and that's all right. As long as this is parallel, this mudsill is parallel with the foundation, you'll be okay. I have 3 1/4 inches over there, 3 1/4 there. I think I have to go just a little more than 3 1/4. Looks like 3 3/8 is what the magic number is going to be. Now you don't have to worry about that number. It's just making sure that you're parallel. Next step we have here is to make sure we transfer these bolts correctly onto the mudsill. So use your square and a pencil, and all you do is slide your square up to the side of the bolt and make a line. Do that to all your bolts first. All right, so we know that this bolt, to the center of this bolt, is 2 inches off of this edge of concrete right here. So what we'll do is we'll pull over 2 inches and make a mark. We do that with all of these bolts. That's 2 7/8. Nice tape. Two and 3/4. And finally, 3 inches. The numbers are all going to be different because as you're pouring the concrete, your bolts move a little bit. It's rare that you'll ever have your anchor bolts in a straight line. So this is why we take each one individually and make sure that we get them placed on the mudsill correctly. So when we slide the mudsill over the bolts, the mudsill will be just where we want it to be. Now what you've seen is that I put my square on the side of the bolt. Obviously, when you drill your hole, you have to take that into account and come over half the distance of the bolt when you start your hole. So I just kind of eyeball it, take my 2 marks, and then I have my spot that I want to drill. I'll do that to all of them. I'll transfer my point that I measured up and come over half the distance of the bolt and make another mark. Very good. So the next thing we do is we drill our mudsill.